Hi, my name is Jeff Jenkins. I'm an education program specialist with the Minnesota Career Information System, or MCIS.
Hi, I'm Kristen Lane, and I too am an education specialist with MCIS.
And in this webinar, we're going to go over the student side of MCIS and kind of how to navigate that part for career planning activities. We call it the student side because, well, that's the only access to MCIS that students or clients will have from their accounts. And that's where all of the career planning activities are located. So to start here, I'm going to log in using our training username and password. Give it a moment as it thinks what it wants to do there. Just to show you that when you log in using either like the site administration account or your staff account, you're going to be directed to the site admin side of MCIS. To get over to that student side or client side, if you will, you go up here to where it says Go to CIS. Sometimes you may see this page. It's going to look like that. All you got to do is click Show and then go up here and click this button. And now we are on that student or client side of MCIS. And what we're going to do in this webinar is really navigate this red mega menu. So up here at the top where it's Plan, Assessments, Occupation, Education, Employment, and My Portfolio. What we're going to really attempt to do is navigate through this the way that you might with your clients when you are working with them on career planning activities. So what we're going to do is start with the assessments. We're going to we'll show you how to complete an assessment. From there, we're going to explore occupations based off of the results of that assessment. And then we're going to go into education files, check out some programs of studies that are related to that occupation. So the ones that you may, like your client may want to do, and then some schools that have that program of study and how to save all of these activities in MCIS. Then we're going to go in and kind of check out basically information about how to obtain and maintain employment. So filling out a resume, checking out where information about how to interview, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to show a little bit of how you can assign activities to your clients, either directly or somewhat more indirectly maybe. And then that will pretty much be the end of this webinar, actually. So let's go ahead and get started. Actually, before I really show you that assessment, I just want to show that if I were to click on this instead of hovering over it, it's going to bring me right down here and it'll show some options this way. So if I go over here to the home page and click on that, it brings me right back here. This information down here is more of the mobile-friendly way of navigating the student side. So if your client is maybe going to be using this on their mobile phone, on their smartphone, they may end up exploring it this way. Each one of these areas, they pretty much match what these red mega menu tabs are. But what we're going to do is just kind of navigate through this part. So all you got to do is hover over, so say assessments, hover over that. And what I'm going to do is go into the career cluster inventory right here at the top of the first column. So clicking into the career cluster inventory, we get to the instructions page. Now this is a pretty standard interest inventory where you're going to rate activities based on this scale, a like very much to dislike. Other interest assessments may have different scales, usually like a 5-point scale, sometimes maybe a 3, but this one does have 4 options. Up at the top here with help and tutorials, most of the pages within MCIS will have a help and tutorials button. So this will give you a quick start of basically instructions how to use that page. If you're getting stuck, you may need some help depending on what assessment or sort or just how to navigate. Usually can use that button to get information. If you happen to have a client whose first language is Spanish, and it would be much easier to complete an assessment, let's say, for like interests or something along that line, you can click here on the Español, and it's going to switch it over into Spanish. Go back to English, just go back, click right back on there, and it switches it back to English. This restore button, I will show you what that does in just a moment. But first, I'm going to get into the assessment. So I click on rate the activities down at that bottom. Kind of did that pretty quickly, but that is where you go, the blue button that says rate the activities. And it takes you right into beginning the assessment. So you can see the first question, if you will, the first activity to rate is going fishing. So if I'm filling this out for myself, I would probably choose like on that one. Help building a stone path at a park. Again, that might be something that I would like. Act in a school play. That one I'm not so sure on. I'm not big about being the center of attention, but I do kind of like plays and theater. So I mean, I'm not sure where I would land on that one. So that's where we've got that option. You take that so on and so forth until you complete all 80 of those questions. But because we have this training login that we're going on, we have completed the assessments already, so I don't have to go through all of this to get this done for you. So I'm going to click the back button, which is a nice saving grace. Sometimes if you kind of get a little bit lost, you can always go back to find where you were and what you were looking at. This is a pretty comprehensive system, a lot of different files, so always remember that you can use that back button up here to get back to where you need to go. So we're back here on the instruction page, and this is where I said I will show you what that restore button does. So I click on that. It's going to take me over to the sort and assessment results. It's housed here in the My Portfolio tab. You can see that that one is highlighted. And it's right down here in the first column under where are the pages and results I've saved, right here in sort and assessment results. So this is where every time that an assessment is completed and saved, it's saved here. So we are looking at the career cluster inventory. If I click on Restore Answer Set 22, this is the most recent one that we have saved. So I want to see my most recent results. Click Continue, and now here's the results page for the career cluster inventory. This is where you'd have your client save it, and it'll save to that sort and assessment results. So for the career cluster inventory, it's going to rank the 16 nationally identified career clusters by most interest to least interest based on how it was scored. So the career cluster is kind of a group of occupations that have similarities. Usually they're similar based on like the job tasks or the skills that are needed to do that type of job. So when I look at this, I see that my scores, the highest one is manufacturing, so that might be one that I want to look at first. I don't have to. I do see there's other ones here that are awfully close, so if there's an inclination that I had coming into this that I would prefer something, maybe I was like, hey, I wanted to do law or something like that, maybe I'd go click on that, seeing that it is awfully close to one of my highs. It's the total score here is probably less important than what the actual order is. So if it is, this is just kind of the relative interest level. So you can see maybe how enthusiastic a client might be for a certain career cluster based on this score. But really when you're exploring careers, my scores are pretty much in the middle. So if it's in the middle or lower, you really just kind of look at the order still. And that's still a good place to start the career planning from there, or the career exploration, if you will. So I'm going to go here to manufacturing. and you can see I am now on the manufacturing cluster page in occupations. You can see that right over here. It's also, you can see that it is highlighted, and it pretty much takes me here. If I were to go here or here on this clusters index, it's going to take me to the list of the clusters. Since I am on the manufacturing page and I clicked on the blue tab on that page, it's going to have this one open, and you can see the different occupations that are related to the manufacturing cluster. But we're going to look at the cluster page first, so I'd have to click on information about manufacturing. It's right underneath the label of the cluster. So we click there, and we are back onto the manufacturing page. So here, when you first get on there, it starts with the top topic, so the one on the top of the list. So the overview, just a little bit of information about what this cluster is in general. We go into level of education and earnings. This is just another way to organize the occupations that are a part of this cluster. So we're looking at the different education level that might be needed, and then it gives the wages for that, the typical wages, median wage for both the national and Minnesota for that occupation. So it goes on down, so, or on up, if you will, maybe actually. So short-term training on up to, it looks like the associate's degree is the highest degree required for occupations within the manufacturing cluster. And then it gives the wages again associated with those. So a good way for clients to explore occupations within the cluster by this, because there's more information provided right away. So if we're looking more at that cluster again, just in general, to see if I would like occupations within this cluster, I can go to helpful high school courses, so that these are some things maybe I would want to take. Maybe this is helpful if you're working with a younger client who is still taking high school courses. This can kind of help plan for that. It's part of the plan of eventually what they may want to do after high school, so they can get some experience going through high school. You can look at the skills. Again, being that this is the cluster, they're going to be pretty broad types of skills. So communicate, problem solve, but just some information there and how you might use those skills. Outlook, just a little piece of information here, a couple paragraphs on what to expect for occupations in the future, the openings in this cluster. Pathways, another way just to organize the occupations. So the pathways are kind of a little bit of a subset of the cluster. So you can see like health, safety, and environmental assurance. There really aren't manufacturing occupations for that pathway, but there are quite a few that fit the maintenance, installation, and repair pathway. We continue on down here to related information. I'm going to go over to occupations. Again, just another list. This is just in alphabetical order, straight from this page, as opposed to going to the clusters index. So if you are using that assessment to help navigate, to kind of find out what cluster or what occupations client might be interested in, you just go straight from there as opposed to going through the occupation tab. You would then find the list, if you wanted it in alphabetical order, right here in the occupations. You can also look at programs of study, areas that you can get training in, whether it is, say, like the associate's degree or more of a certificate, but different training programs that would be associated with occupations in this cluster. And then you got occupation videos right down here that will show a little bit about different occupations that fit this cluster. So I'll give a variety to just get a basic idea of what could be doing for occupations in this cluster. So now that I've gone through all of that, let's say I was interested in this cluster in general, I might like to do some occupations in here. I can go over here, click Save. I can then put in some of my thoughts about this. If I wanted to, some notes, wouldn't have to. And I can save information, and it's going to take me back over here to my portfolio. This time it's going to be in favorites. So anytime that you are saving, you can see the options here, like the clusters or specific occupations or programs of study, any scholarships for financial aid. It's all going to be housed here in favorites, which is in my portfolio, right back in that where are the pages and results I've saved, right here in favorites. So to get back in that, we can see it's my saved career clusters, manufacturing, updated today. I can click back into that and I'm right back on the page where I was. So I've saved that. I think I might like occupations in this cluster. I want to start exploring those occupations. Now, which one would I specifically want? And as I said, I like the level of education and earnings page here, and I like to go through this. Now, maybe I'm thinking for myself as the client that, you know, I was thinking I wanted to do an associate's degree, and I saw that there was a career here in occupation that does require an associate's degree, medical equipment repairers. In our current situation with COVID-19, everything that's going on with that, maybe medical equipment repairer is a good job for in the future. So I want to know a little bit more about that one. So I click on medical equipment repair and it brings me to that page. It looks very similar to the cluster page. There are just more topics to go through. To get here, if you're going straight into the occupations tab, it's right down here in occupations, and that's going to take you to the titles index, which is again just kind of an alphabetical order of all the occupations in MCIS, which I believe is over 560. So that's a lot of different ones to go through. And again, that's kind of why I like to use an assessment to help narrow down those choices instead of just looking randomly at, you know, more than 560 occupations. The assessment kind of breaks that down and maybe gives you a list of 20, 30, 40 different options to choose from that you might have interest in. So that's where I usually start with the assessment leading into the exploration. All right, so on this page, again, it starts at the very top when you get on here, at a glance. It's kind of a summary page of all that labor market information. So the different types of working conditions, education that may be required, wages, outlook, all that kind of information. There's also a video that's right up on that main page, on that at a glance. It's also down here again under occupation videos. Click on that, it's going to give a video that is related to medical equipment repair. So a client can see more what that job would be like, what the working conditions might be like, just a little bit of what it could be like working as a medical equipment repairer by viewing that video. Want to kind of scroll on down here. I'm going to go into task list. I usually find this helpful to look through task list or general work activities. Gives kind of an idea of what you'd actually be doing on the job. Again, we've got helpful high school courses that are specific to this occupation that again could be helpful for any clients that you're working with that may be 15, 16 years old, still have high school courses to take. Skills and abilities, physical demands, so just kind of what they may have to do, how much they're going to be bending, stooping, climbing, standing, all of that kind of stuff. Working conditions, again, just kind of the general work environment, what to expect. Preparation, just click on there. It is at that at a glance part, but you can see it's a little bit more detailed. Gives an idea that you would need a high school diploma and an associate's degree, most likely to become a medical equipment repairer. Wages, fun thing about this is it will break down, so it shows you Minnesota and United States when you click on it on this topic, but it also breaks down regions within Minnesota, because we know that different places in Minnesota will have different costs of living. So between like Minneapolis, St. Paul, or more rural areas. So that's kind of where it goes from here, and it can be helpful. So then a client may know if they're in whatever region and they want to stay there, they can maybe get an idea of what wages would be there, or if they're looking at moving somewhere else or willing to within Minnesota, they can kind of find out what's going to be the best region perhaps for them if they were going to pursue that occupation. Under this one, there is only the 2 regions. Generally speaking, more other occupations will provide more regions. I think they do show the 7 regions. It goes up to that. And then if you want to look at different states and wages, so if they're looking at moving over to Wisconsin or North Dakota, or say California, New York, Florida, Texas, wherever they may want to move, your clients may want to move for this kind of occupation, you can click here and see the wages for up to 5 different states. And that can be compared. It's got annual wages, it can go monthly or hourly. Same type of thing with employment and Outlook. Breaks it down by region. Can look to select different states, look up 5 different states at a time to compare. This is again really looking at how many openings there might be looking future. So we've got information about how many are employed currently, and all these numbers are updated. So this one we can see that there's kind of a small number working in Minnesota, and there's a small number in the United States overall. So then there are a few openings overall when we look at it. So 112 annually in Minnesota. So they're saying there's only a few. We would like to see higher numbers, generally speaking there. However, looking at the growth rates, you can kind of dive into it a little bit more. So I'm going to point out central Minnesota specifically. We can look at all occupations in central Minnesota are growing at 8.6%, but this one in particular is growing 31%. So you can see a really high growth rate. So even though there's a small number of employment and right now only few openings, with that kind of growth rate compared to other occupations, maybe there will be openings for this occupation in that location. So that's where you can kind of talk with your clients a little bit about how that might all work out, that kind of stuff. I'm going to go down here to related information. So we're looking at medical equipment repair. Maybe I want to see what are other occupations. I'm kind of liking what I'm reading so far about medical equipment repair. Maybe I've looked at a video on medical equipment repairing, so I think that I might like to do this. However, maybe there are some other occupations that I would also like to do, and maybe would like to do even more. So I'm looking down here, and my understanding of the English language, medical appliance technician seems awfully close to medical equipment repair, so maybe I want to know more about that one. I could just click on the link here and go to the same type of page, but it'll be for medical appliance technician, and look over the information there and just kind of remember what I had read about medical equipment repair. Or I can do a side-by-side comparison. So I know that I'm going to do medical appliance technician. I can go up here into this blue tab for compare. And if you wanted to do that from the very beginning at the tab, it's right here in the middle column, compare occupations. So what I'm going to do is go down here to the compare on this blue tab, so it's going to keep medical equipment repairer on there for me, because that's the page that I was on. And I wanted to take a look at the medical appliance technician. So if I scroll down, There we are, medical appliance technician. I click there and it pulls up these two and I can see, yep, those are the ones that I want to compare. So I click the compare button and now I've got a side-by-side view of all the different topics so I can do a good comparison to see which one I prefer more. So let's say I do all of that. I'm looking, I may prefer medical equipment repair based on all this information. I can again go and save. I could again type in my thoughts, what I might like about it, what may concern me, that kind of stuff. Just do a little comparison type of thing with that. Click Save Information. And we're right back here in Favorites in My Portfolio, right here in this column. We can scroll down My Saved Occupations. We've got medical equipment repair, so we updated that today. So that is now saved in there. If I want to go back into, I can just click on it from right there, or like I said, you can use the back button a couple times and you can get back to the same page. So I'm back on medical equipment repair. I want to continue down with this related information. If you wanted to check sort of some industries, maybe you weren't quite sure, or maybe a client was just kind of thinking, well, does that mean I have to work in a hospital? I don't know if I would like to work in a hospital. You can get some ideas of where you might work as a medical equipment repairer. Go down here, military occupations. So sometimes if the occupation you're looking at does have like a military counterpart, you can get some information about it from right here. This one does not. So it does say these are two occupations that are closely related. So a client, if they are thinking military and they want to see some occupations that are in the military, they can look this way. If you do have a client that wants to go into the military, there are more files about that here in the occupations tab. Right here in the middle column, you can look about the military, just get some basic information about the different branches and different things along that line. And then you can look up all the military occupations that are housed in MCIS, clicking on military occupations. Keep scrolling down here. I'm going to go show you just a quick National Labor Exchange. This is just a job search website that is within MCIS that you can link to. So if I were to click on medical equipment repair, it will take me to that job search website, and it'll already have openings in all of Minnesota for these types of occupations. So a client could start looking for the type of openings if that's where they are in their career planning process. So the one that I had skipped was here, programs of study. So I click on there, and this is going to show the programs that are maybe required to get a position in this occupation. So we can see here, programs of study directly related to this occupation would be biomedical technology. However, there are a few others that could be considered that are awfully close that may lead to a career in medical equipment repair as well. But this is where I'm going to hand it off to Kristen and let her describe more of these education files for you.
Hi, thanks, Jeff. Yes, I've been a high school counselor for over 20 years, and I just found that best part of the conversation would be about one session, and then sometimes the second time you met with them, you'd be kind of going into this career, looking more deeply into the career and where to go to get that training. So I'm just going to continue that journey in looking at those programs of study and starting there with biomedical technology because it most directly relates to the medical equipment repairs. And so when we end up on this biomedical technology site, we are in the education tab, and that's the tab that I'm mostly going to be in right now. Will be the education tab, but again, going through with that journey, we are going to be in the education tab, looking at it through this like natural progression. So the biomedical technology will have an overview of that program of study here in the middle and just kind of give you an idea of what this program prepares people to do, and just sort of an overlying topic of what types of jobs that they would be doing, as well as the typical sort of path for schooling or preparation. And so they'll see that many community colleges, technical schools, there's also some certificates and associate degrees in biomedical technology. And it's just some information about how long a certificate might take, maybe even building on if you want to go further, that this can build into a bachelor's degree, and that there's not also a lot of schools, that there's very few in this particular instance that offer graduate degrees. So there are some, but that just kind of tells you what the path would be for furthering your education in biomedical technology. Typical coursework. This will tell you what is the type of coursework that they'll take by program. So for an associate's degree, these would be some of the typical classes that that you would see. And then if you're looking at more of the engineering technician, down here is some additional information on that topic. Things to know. This might not really be about a course topic, but maybe it highlights some other skills that you might need or considerations. So for this one, for example, having good, clear and writing communication skills, just sort of emphasize that. Also that writing and speaking, because you will be communicating with your with employers, and when you're going to do the repairs, there's going to be a lot of communicating back and forth, and possibly emailing, writing to clarify what the issue might be, or what you're working on. And also maybe some information on medical technicians. For other jobs, this could be where they might put in that you're required to buy your own tools, or just kind of a nice catch-all for some additional information that might not come out in a topic in another place. Down here under related information, I'm going to skip down to this programs of study. I'll hit first. This will list also programs of study that were on the other list when we were on with Jeff, when we talked about it from the launch page. So this is biomedical technology, and then these are other programs of study that were also very closely related or similar to that path. Occupations were a list of careers that are occupations that also biomedical technology prepares you for. So they can do more exploring. There's that medical appliance technician coming up. So a lot of interplay and crossing over of information in multiple places. It's real intuitive. The career fields is that big, larger grouping of related careers, otherwise called the pathway. So the biomedical technology is in the pathway of engineering, manufacturing, and technology. And I'd like to point out here at the bottom is the financial aid. So it's sometimes a nice talking point when you're at this part to highlight with clients that there are some specific financial aid programs, financial aid options within MCIS. There are over 3,000 scholarships and financial aid sites for you to go and visit, and it links it to it here just specifically for national and in-state. So it'll list all the scholarships in-state. So a nice place to go and begin that conversation, and we'll talk more about finding more aid in a later part of the webinar. Okay, I'm going to go back up here to the institutions. So now here's where we have our biomedical technology, and we're going to look at programs. You can look at just the Minnesota schools. There's over 140 of the Minnesota schools are all collected here. Many of our students stay in state, but if they want to go out of state, there's also all of the U.S. colleges and universities. So maybe your client wants to stay in state, so let's look at the Minnesota post-secondary institutions. In this site, it will list the Min-State schools, also called the MinSCU schools. They'll have the Minnesota University system, as well as they'll include private if there are private schools. So for biomedical technology, it's only going to be found in these two university systems. So let's pop into this Minnesota post-secondary institutions. And here, if you want to save this whole list, you can. Otherwise, you can start to kind of go through and look at each of the schools, kind of go, oh, wait, Noka Ramsey, Coon Rapids certificate. it'll list what they have, associates in science, so there's some options. Boy, that Coon Rapids location is actually really close to maybe where I live, so I might look at that a little bit more. Right here, they can click into program description, so it's kind of pops it up, expands it, and you can see that they have a couple certificate options and some information about what those are, what those certificates entail and what they're preparing you for, as well as additional information on that Associates in Science program. So you might say, well, I really like that one. So we're going to go into it and check it out because it's close to home. And you'll see we're still in the Education tab. Now we're looking at the college's link. In the middle is the school information and contact information, and they'll have at-a-glance information. This is the website that links you right to Anoka Ramsey's school website. There's also videos for each of the schools, and we're really excited. This spring we updated with over 2,000 360 virtual tour videos. So that is just really something, especially right now with COVID going on and trying to do campus visits. It can be quite a challenge with following all those guidelines. So this would be maybe a nice place to go and just look around. Okay. Over here on the left, we want to keep looking into the school, and we have a list of topics very similar to when we were looking up programs of study and the occupation. I'm going to skip down to the student body. Student body, here we go. So student body will give you some information about the enrollment, how many students apply by gender as well, what the diversity of the campus is, international students, how many are there, also the age of the student. So when working with your client on is this a fit for me, sometimes those pieces of information can become important in trying to find that fit. Costs is a part that sometimes that is hard to find when you're on a college's website. So what I like about this cost here in working with clients is that this information is updated. We send out each year a survey, a college survey, and to all of our Minnesota schools, and yours truly and Jeff and the other crew at MCIS work throughout the year as we get those surveys back in to be updating so that all of our information on these topics, including the costs, are up to date and as accurate as possible. So you'll get the in-state, out-of-state tuition. Sometimes looking at this, kids go, whoa. So it's really nice that financial aid follows this when you're working with your clients, because the financial aid is a nice spot to also go into and talk about, well, how many of them got financial aid? So over half of the students that graduated got financial aid or some kind of grant, and it tells what kind of need is available. They do work study, there's veterans. So just a lot of good resources as far as that information when making a decision. Admissions is important to go through with your clients as well, because it talks about what's the difficulty for getting enrolled in the school, what's required for getting into the program. Also a little bit of like how many people are applied, how many people got accepted, as well as what's the education requirement if they need a high school diploma, also some deadlines, as well as any exams that might be required. And so for example, for this one, the internal assessment, some programs have special requirements, lets you know this would probably be the AccuPlacer test, and there's different parts within that test. So there's going to maybe, depending on your program, be some special testing that you'll need to do if they're accepting credits from outside of the college. So if your clients are dual enrolled or have taken some other credits, that they are accepting them or not, and how they are accepting them. Another topic area is that academics. That's really important as far as making sure that what you're looking at as far as the structure of the school for many students when I'm working with them and your clients is like the size of the school. When they look at the ratio of staff to faculty, they look at the lecture size, and depending on what school they came from, 30 might be a really big class for them, or 30 could be like, wow, I might have 36 or 38 in my class. So that might be telling, and it gives them an idea of fit. And I have often shared that, my lectures at my college were 220. So they vary greatly depending on the school. And that really becomes important when you're looking at what's a good fit and is your client going to be successful when they attend the school and be set up for success. So it kind of tells what flexibility they have and the types of courses they offer. Okay, so just some good information. Also, we like to talk to clients about the activities and what else is involved in the school and getting involved if you're going to choose to go to a campus. A lot of times they don't realize that there are a lot of sports available. They think, well, if I didn't get a D1 scholarship to play basketball, life's, kind of, what am I going to do? Well, a lot of schools offer quite a robust offering of sports as well as student life activities, because we are something besides just a student and just doing a career. We need to have a fuller, richer life. So these are other activities that are also going on campuses to discuss and talk about that might be important with your clients. Also, housing information. Different schools have different housing setups, so this will be information on each school's housing. I'm going to go to the student services. I find this was really helpful in working with students or clients on a 504 or an IEP, because IDEA changes between high school and college. And so working with students to understand those differences and what's available at colleges varies depending on the college. They don't have to follow things the same way that a high school student would. So what kind of services are available and are offered at each of these campuses is really important in working with clients and students. So down here is also like the contact person. So that might be someone you really want to help them get a copy of a 504 or IEP2 and help introduce and make that connection with them. So just more information on the types of services and the way that they will offer them can be really helpful. And also the career services isn't, each school will have some type of career service, and so highlighting, like, once they get done with their program, that this is a resource for them in having to help locate a job. MCIS can help, but so can their resources at their college. And then related information below. This is all on the different programs that each school would offer. So there'll be more information on their whole arts program or their engineering technologies program. Okay, so from here, you can look at a cluster index, and this will be a listing of all the schools in Minnesota, or you can go by a title index, looking up the schools alphabetically of all the schools in Minnesota. What I'd like to do really quickly here is I really like this compare, where we can compare, like Jeff did with the jobs. He could compare 2 jobs. You can compare 3 colleges side by side. So using this compare button, because we're on Anoka Ramsey, it pulls it up. And then you have to kind of remember what those other colleges might have been with the program, or you can use the famous back button to go back multiple clicks to get back to that list if you can't remember. But I'm going to use my easy button here. My memory remembers that there was also a St. Cloud Technical and Community College that I'm going to add. Let me dig a little deeper. Up Dakota County Technical College also had that program. So I have 3 schools that I just happen to remember have that program instead of using my back arrow. Hit the magic compare button. And here we can compare, like you did with the jobs, you can compare 3 schools and you can pull up, for example, student body. You can pull up their costs and all of these different topics again. From here, you can also save a college. I was talking about saving them along the way. We can also click here and it puts you back to the page and save the college as your favorites. And you can write a note in here, check it out. And then down here, you can add it to the application tracker. If it looks like it was already a favorite, if it didn't have this star, we would be able to add it to the financial aid and to our college application tracker. When you first hit save, it goes into my portfolio, again into your favorites. and it'll be under Minnesota post-secondary institutions, and you'll say my saved colleges, and you'll see that we saved this one as of today. And then and that just brings you right back to the college. And then we can go on to the school sort, which is a little bit of an easier way to do it. And I liked this way. It's a little bit faster, and also will open it up so that you're not just looking at Minnesota schools, because in Minnesota it's nice that we have that reciprocity. So let's go to the school sort. There is a help quick guide here, so if you want your clients to do this independently, they can do that with that quick start directions. But let's pop in here to undergraduate. And it'll take a second to click in. All right, so now we're still in the education tab under the school sort. And over here, there are topics that we're able to sort by. We still have access to that help tutorial right here as well. So it'll have that same quick link to the quick start if you need it, or if your client needs it. But here is the topics we can sort by, and we'll start with degree. So we talked about wanting an associate's degree. And we'll want to continue. And it'll continue down each of these topics. And at the bottom, we can see associate's degree. Well, there's still 2,390 schools on the list, because we have a bank of over 4,000 colleges across the United States. So it's really nice to sort of drill it down. That's a little big to look at. So we talked about looking at client thought I would be open to going to any of the reciprocity states. So we click on Minnesota, it adds it over here. We'll just go right down the list: North Dakota, South Dakota, and we'll look at Wisconsin. And then sometimes they might say, oh, I have a favorite aunt that lives in California. Okay, great, pull it up. So you can add in the states right here. Now we have degrees, states, and then we still have 354 schools. I'm not so worried about admissions right now. I'm going to focus on academics, because we want to make sure that when we go to a college, it actually has the program that we want to study. And that happens frequently when I'm working with my students, and it may work with you with your clients, so they just want to go somewhere because they want to go somewhere. So let's make sure that they actually have the program that we want to study. I find the major clusters to be a bigger topic. You have to remember more that pathway, that larger name. I like to really move towards the individual majors, and that's where we can look up the biomedical technology, because that's what we're looking at. So you can keep with that program of study when you go with the individual majors. And then we select it, and you'll see that it's over here on majors. And we can include all schools that offer any majors. So if you want to add multiple majors, you can. I'm just going to stick with biomedical today. And we're going to see that we have 21 schools. And so that's a much more manageable list. And at this point, I think I'm okay with just getting my results. At this point, you can save your sorts. But we now have a list of all the colleges that would fit our criteria. So we might want to pick and say, oh, okay, my aunt lives in Los Angeles. This might be by her. Let's look at that one that's really close to home, that Coon Rapids. And then, you know, St. Cloud Technical wasn't too far away. Let's pick those three. So you can compare again 3 schools by going up here. This is the way I like to do it, because it can pull in again those reciprocity schools, and I don't have to have that memory of going back and forth. And it still pulls up 3 colleges, and we can start to look at them side by side. And sometimes the data isn't updated, so we have to kind of go back or look it up individually. You can look at the admissions and look it up all by the different topics. When you go in here, you can also click in a particular college. Again, save it. Add some comments, hit save, and it shows up. Because we did it in the school sort, it'll show up in this colleges and universities, but it will also populate it any of the Minnesota schools in there. So we can see our St. Cloud Technical is right here in 616 today. And then I just want to show you this application tracker. And this just helps you with following. It's a tool within MCIS, and it's under my portfolio as well, under application tracker, or it's under education under application tracker. So a lot of places you can end up in the application tracker, but this is just a tool where students could then go into the MnState system and do that Common App where they could apply to multiple colleges in Minnesota or the University of Minnesota systems. We have direct links here. It's also a place where you can track basically the college. So we see that we had that Coon Rapids. We can put down the deadline. We have to confirm what the deadline was for the application. They need transcripts. So this is a place for your client to report out on where they are with their status in regards to applying to a college or a university scholarship. So this tracker will keep track of both of those things. And it's a great point for you to do a check-in with your client. Okay. Now I'd like to go back into the Education Files tab. It is a really large tab with information. I just walked you through a way of sort of naturally walking through with the client. Walking in and just choosing or looking at all the programs of study can be a bit big. So I walked you through that way, but I do want to highlight we are doing a 30-minute webinar really just on the education tabs where we will look more into, what can I study and cover more of those short-term trainings, where can I study, and like really hit those apprenticeships files that are in here that are really helpful. What are some other ways to get some training or college credits? We already hit that school sort and we looked at compare today and even touched on the application tracker. And we'll talk more about, we really just got into the tip of financial aid, but this will help you in that 30-minute webinar to really dive more into those files and use them along with those montage videos and some ideas on using those montage videos. So after looking at what kind of program you want to go in and study, we found our biomedical technology. We found that maybe Anoka, Ramsey would be a good place to go and study. We've gone to school, we've been successful, and we need to start looking for employment. So this really walks into the next piece, which is the employment tab. And again, there will be a 30-minute video webinar just on employment, where you will dive into the resume creator, the job search. So this is that how to obtain a job, the job success, how can I keep a job? So this is going to be all those important pieces of like overcoming barriers and resolving issues. And so those soft skills. And then there's self-employment, where it'll explore that self-entrepreneurial. Is that a good fit for you? Real quick, I want to just jump in though. This resume creator is kind of a quick, fun one to look at. The resume creator can be used while still in the early process of looking at scholarships. If you're working with high school students, finding a part-time job. So this one can be really nice in the short term too. Education training these are the headers that are normally in a resume. And so when you click in here, each header will have a place where you can add another school. You can edit it. If you've graduated, you can come in here. You can edit an end date. If you haven't graduated or when you graduate, there are other sub-files. So like any licenses and certificates that may have been obtained while going through your program, unpaid, paid and unpaid work. So this will be another header where you can add your work history as well as your volunteer community service, any military service that your client may have done. Then there's achievements, activities, and skills. Again, another place to keep record of all those things that they may have been doing and input them here. Contact information and references, although references aren't always put. You can edit your personal information. References aren't always put on applications. A lot of that can be online. It's still a good place to house that information so that you can go back to it. And once you've completed those headers, then you can come in here and you can really take a peek at a sample. This will pull up all that information you've been sharing. You get some choices. If you want to include dates in the resume, that's good. I said maybe not to put my references in. Possibly it's already on the online application. And I just want to see a sample of this chronological ordered resume. So here you can see how it puts it all into a format based on the heading information you've completed. So kind of a slick way of doing resumes, and they are saved within my portfolio. So right here you will find, and you can go to your saved ones and any found ones. So there are, now we're going to go through, we've gone through assessments, we have explored some occupations, and we've identified some programs to get studying to find our career, to find a career in medical equipment and prepare for that career. We've looked up some employment tabs. So we've really covered the career plan steps. Now Jeff is going to show you how you can assign activities to your clients and help them guide them through the career decision-making process and completing a personal learning plan or a PLP. Thanks. Here you go, Jeff.
Thanks, Kristen. All right. Well, before I get into showing how to assign the activities, I just want to highlight, as Kristen was with the webinars for the education tab and the employment tab, we will have the 30-minute webinars on the assessments and occupation. So far, pretty much everything that we have gone through, there will be a 30-minute webinar, roughly 30 minutes anyway, that will cover those tabs in more detail. So you'll see what more of those files really can look like, or really how to use all of the files or activities within MCIS from these tabs. So the same will be true for what the information that we're coming up on right now, where I'm going to look at the career plan. But before I get into the career plan, I'm going to scroll down here to the footer. I'm going to look under MCIS resources for tools for counselors and teachers. Kristen had mentioned that I'm going to look over that personal learning plan, or PLP. I'm going to show you what that is and how maybe you would use this document. So I'm going into guides and instructional tools. And I can come down here to personal learning plan. And this is going to show me a blank form. So I'm going to pull that up so we can take a look at what's on this personal learning plan. Now, so we're looking at this because a neat thing about MCIS is it will automatically populate a personal learning plan. It'll populate this one. This is a default one that is part of MCIS. And there is a statute in Minnesota requiring all high school students to have a personal learning plan. So kind of an important document, and like I said, MCIS will populate one, so that's how it really helps for schools and high schools with their students. But for voc rehab, a personal learning plan may operate more as just kind of a summary of the career decision-making process. Maybe it can be used for anything kind of like a plan justification if needed, or just some reasons why your client is wanting to pursue a specific occupation. So lots of different information on here. Basically everything that we have gone over from that Red Mega menu so far is on this PLP. So if I scroll down, we can see there are assessments. So it'll be the date saved, and if the client had written anything about what they learned from that assessment on here, it's on the summary here, it's on the PLP. They could write down whether or not they like doing it or anything like that too in the reflection box, and it'll show up on here. So whatever they end up writing in that will be here. Can come down, occupations and clusters of interest. We went through the occupations and clusters. When we save those, it's going to populate here again the what I learned, anything that they put down in those reflection boxes when they're saving it. Here's more specifically for in school, kind of the course planning. We scroll down here, though, the programs of study that Kristen had walked through, any that client has saved as a possible interest, something they may want to do, it's going to be saved here. Post-secondary schools will be saved here. And you can see underneath, it describes where this PLP gets the information from MCIS. So this is coming from the favorites, programs of study. This will be from favorites in U.S. colleges and universities for the post-secondary schools. So all that kind of stuff where we saved it, that's where it's coming from. Down here is going to be more from the resume. We can see that from Resume Creator. So more of the experiential types of activities that is usually found on a resume that may have contributed to a client's decision and what they wanted to do. So if they had any volunteer or community service that helped shape what kind of occupation they wanted to go into, shape their decision on that. Same with any extracurricular activities or their employment history. And why they want to go into something based off of, hey, if it was, say, a high school student who had been working a summer job and they want to go into work that is related to what they've done over the summers, that's kind of just more information about how they got to their career decision. So these kind of pieces of information can be very helpful as well. There's also going to be more of that experiential learning kind of stuff. Like job shadows or informational interviews, anything along those lines. The blank form does not show that, but we will show after doing all of these, these two tools that help you assign activities. We'll take a look at the personal learning plan from there, and you'll see that some of those activities that you might be helping your clients with to help them make a decision about what they want to pursue will also be here on the personal learning plan. So this other piece of information, like you can see here, my action plan or support network, a little bit of what you want to do as a client, what they want to do and how they're maybe going to get there. So more reflection boxes, same thing up here at the very top when we look at my career goals and education plans. All of this comes from the career plan. You can see that right underneath, from career plan set goals. So we're going to cover that right now and show what that tool is in MCIS. And then you'll know that that's what populates this personal learning plan. So I'm going to exit out of here, get back into MCIS, and go here in either the plan tab at the first one here, career plan, or in my portfolio, the first column at the very top, career plan. We click on that, and now we are in the career plan. So what is this? Well, pretty much it is a lesson plan for how to do career planning. There are activities that are embedded in this career plan that you would essentially assign your clients to do. It is set up here in 3 different levels: getting started, looking deeper, next steps. Each of these levels, they have the activities, they have reflection boxes, and they have links to different parts of MCIS that a client would be using to fill out that level, to fill out that area. Each one of these levels, that's what kind of operates as a lesson plan for that time period. I say time period because you can see it's kind of set up for grades like 8th, 9th. Looking deeper would be like 10th and 11th. Next steps is typically grade 12. But you don't have to worry too much and stick to that. It's more just kind of getting started is where you're going to start. That's going to be the first leg of the career plan. And then you go into looking deeper because these activities, they sort of build on what the activities were in getting started. The same thing with next steps, builds on what you were doing in looking deeper and getting started to really kind of solidify what kind of plan your client wants to go into. So 3 different levels with activities. Client doesn't have to be in high school to be doing this. You can have anybody, any of your clients go through this. It's just a way to help them with their career decision-making process or their career planning, however you want to identify what you are helping your clients do. In each of these levels, there are 5 different sections. So know myself, research options, evaluate options, set goals, and make plans. Again, these sections are kind of set up sort of like the basic career planning model, where you kind of learn a little bit about what interests might be, or a little bit about personality, how that relates to work or skills, those types of assessments, generally speaking, in the know myself section. Research options, kind of looking more through the occupations tab, kind of finding what options fit, usually taking those assessment results and exploring there. Evaluating, there are some activities in here that really help a client to think more about their options, think about the occupations that they are choosing, that they think they're interested in. There are some activities that help them think through that a little bit more. Setting goals, so this is where after you've done through this, you've thought through it, client might be identifying, hey, I want to do this as a career goal. Maybe I have these for my personal goals of what I want to achieve over this next year, or anything along those lines, which could be used just in your process of working with the client for what it is that you're doing with voc rehab. So you might be able to use it a little bit differently in that way. You can maybe direct your client to think about personal goals. Also, maybe write in there what they're hoping from voc rehab or something along those lines. So different things that you can do that way to make it more applicable to the work that you're doing with the client. And then making plans, it's just kind of then following through kind of what it is that they want to do, how they're going to get to there. And I know that in voc rehab, that's kind of one of the big things that you might be working with. You're trying to set up a plan for how the client might achieve their career goals. So that's kind of what's set up in here. So I'm just going to kind of go in here real quick, so you can click on, say, getting started, either from this link or up here in the blue tab. Click getting started. To go through it, you got to just click on one of the sections here on the side. I'm just going to start with the very beginning, go know myself. You can see each one of these sections in each of these tabs is going to be set in the same way. Like I said, it does kind of operate as, this is almost like an assignment, if you will. You can have them complete know myself. So it would be doing these assessments. So here are the PDFs or Word documents for them. When it comes to these assessments, you don't have to actually use the PDF. You can link to, so that's where the components that are used in this part. You can link to reality check or career cluster inventory from right here, or you can just have your client go into the assessments tab like we had before. You'll also be using occupations to kind of identify, think through a little bit of which ones may be good fits based off of the assessments that were taken. And down here would be the reflection boxes. For instance, right here, the career clusters you are interested in now. So after going through doing these activities, client can select these, and this will go on the personal learning plan. I'm just going to show you how it builds, research my options. So then there's more activities here. So again, some worksheets, another way to identify what these are. So worksheets for the assignment, it is to complete this section. That is the lesson plan, that is this whole getting started tab. So using some of the education language for how this is actually kind of set up. But again, for you, maybe just assigning some activities, let them work through this to help identify a career they may want to go into. Evaluate my options, this is where it's kind of thinking more through. So I really like this, evaluate my occupation options, or evaluate my program of study options. These types of activities, I think, can really help a person think through whether or not there'd be good opportunities, good options to consider. And then, of course, you've got reflection boxes. So the last thing I'm going to really show is just really kind of how this career plan, the final product, really works more like a journal. So if I click over here on this report, you can see how it's kind of this journal that was set up, because there are a lot of those reflection boxes. Those are the main assignments, if you will. Within career plan, this is where it's going to pull and put on the personal learning plan. So all these different questions. So this is sort of the thought process that a client had when going through this about making their career decision. So you just go see, you can see the questions on knowing myself, researching options. It just goes on down that list, and you have sort of a journal of their career decision-making process. So that's pretty much the career plan. Like I said, I do have a 30-minute webinar where I'll go a little bit more in depth on the activities that are associated with it. We'll take a look at that kind of stuff and just kind of put it together in a little bit more detail. And I'm going to turn it over to Kristen. She's going to show you another way to assign activities that may be a little bit more customizable. So you can kind of choose what it is you want. This one, again, this is sort of fixed. This is what the career plan is. These are the activities that are a part of it. But what Kristen will show you can be more customized and can directly assign different activities to your clients. So take it away, Kristen.
All right, thanks, Jeff. So what we're going to cover are the checklists. So right here, you can navigate checklists. They are a way to assign some of those specific activities that your client can complete independently to meet those career planning steps and plan justification activities. You can choose from any of, we have 170 different curriculum plan activities that Jeff was showing you in MCIS through the career plan. So checklist is a way to assign any of those activities that were in the career plan in a more specific way. We can also get to it through my portfolio. We can also see there's career plan and checklist is right below it. So let me show you what checklists look like. And I just want to show you, I'm going to show you just the student, what the student view is. Setting these checklists up is going to be a 30-minute 101 webinar coming up separately from this one. But for this presentation, I just want to show you what the students see and remind you there is that help button. So students can navigate checklists independently, but there's a quick start up there that just really can help if students or clients need a reminder on how to kind of what things mean. When you first enter checklist, there's a heading right here that is a message, and that's completely editable as well. So this was just our message, default message. What's nice about checklists is you can also have some support materials. So how to save worksheets. So any of those activities that Jeff was showing you, those like lesson plans, and there was the reflection boxes, as well as those same activities can be assigned in checklists. Those worksheets that the PDFs they're working on can be saved in MCIS right here. There is a stored files and links, and so you can see where the resumes that we may have worked on or any of the worksheets that were done. So just want to highlight that right here, as well as any other support documents you feel your clients might need. They'll see a checklist, which will give like their trackable progress on how they're doing on their checklists. Right here, you're going to see below a number of checklists. There are several here. This is our demo site. So if you have clients that are maybe still in high school, they might see themselves assigned to a few checklists. Like they could have a grade 9 checklist. They might be at the ALC. They could be in an AVID program. So they may have a few checklists that they're assigned to. They could only have one. So just depends on, we'll talk about that when we're talking about assigning groups. But this will be the demo side, and I made one just for vocational rehabilitation services, just to kind of help see what those would look like. When you go into these grade 9, 10, 11, and 12, these are checklists that are default from the state. They have activities that meet all of the state career standards, so they're fairly lengthy, and they'll have things like next year's course plan for 10th grade, or enter your MCA scores or ACT scores. So there's a lot of just school specific ones. So I kind of created one here called Kristen's Caseload to be more specific for you with working on clients. And when you look into their checklist, there's a little help piece. There's a little help icon here to give some directions. There's some where they can edit. And then this little red star might show if some things are required. So from this checklist activity, these are from the career plan. These are those goals. So write a career goal. What are your career goals? So you can update these. can update that information. Career goal would be to stay close to home, have flexible hours. Maybe. There we go. We can update that information, close the window, and this is one of those boxes that it'll update, and it'll also be saved on that personal learning plan, and we'll see that in a minute. You can see it comes from the career plan. Checklist activities can be in a sequential order, so you might want to have them just work down in an order. They can link directly to assessments from the assessment tab, any assessments. So this one will link right to the learning style survey, and they can get that started right from a checklist item. And they can also, let's see here. These would be required ones. You can see right here if they've completed it, also the day that it might be completed. So down here, I'd like to point out, so again, sequential order. So you might want to have a client learn about resumes and begin to collect information on resumes. And then that would link them right to those headers that we were talking about earlier when looking at the resume creator. So this is really just a nice way, checklist, to assign any of those 170 curriculum activities that are in that career plan that Jeff was going over, and you just want to do very specific ones. You can also create your own activities that are outside of MCIS. So if you have things that are your favorites, you can create links with PDFs and links to other URL sites. And we will go over how to do that customization in that 30-minute webinar. So after you get done doing career plan activities, as Jeff was talking about, or you assign them through checklists, I want to pop into that personal learning plan and under my portfolio, personal learning plan. And Jeff was showing you an empty one, a blank one. And I would like to show you that once we do some activities, like here's that population. Here's where I just updated my goal today. And you can see my previous goals, those education plans, all the assessments that have been taken, any notes that they've written on them, the dates they've taken them, their clusters of interest. So you can see how it just populates from those activities that they're doing either through the career plan or through a checklist item. Those are the graduation requirements, test scores that it populates onto this plan. So it can also work as a plan justification or support a plan justification. Those extracurricular activities, and here's those work-based learning experiences. And then if you do the experiential learning, it wasn't necessarily a blank one when we did it earlier, but once you complete an activity, it will also populate it right onto the PLP in this example. And there's all those experiential learning activities. Just close out of there and then show you that it generates a PDF. But also if you're working with your clients and you just want to go to something very specific and you want to update it, maybe they want to update their career goal, you can also hit the little plus sign here, and then it brings you right again to that reflection box where they can update and do information individually too. All right. So this wraps up our webinar for today. We've navigated through the student side we kind of sprinted through a career plan where we looked through an assessment, what would be a typical student perspective, and we did an assessment. We saved an occupation. We explored schools that they might be interested in going to, and then we looked at how to gain employment, some supports for getting employment, and then we also looked at how you can assign activities to your client through either the career plan, going through the career plan, getting to know yourself and exploring, or assigning them specific activities through a checklist in a way that you want them to navigate going through their career planning journey. We will be doing live sessions of this webinar in July where we'll be going over some of these same topics, and you will be able to work on some of these activities and ask questions. If you have any questions, please contact MCIS team, Jeff and myself, at the login page. I'm going to log in right here. You can contact the MCIS team right here through an email or by phone number. And part of your fees is supports getting this direct service. So please use us. We're here to help. It's a really large program, but it's full of really good and useful tools for you to work with your clients. So please contact us. Thank you so much.